They won't even know what hit them.
Can it, Psycho? Pay attention. This is a covert operation.
I haven't played any of Frictional's games for at least a decade at this point. The last one, I'm pretty sure, was Soma, which I greatly enjoyed, actually. I believe it's getting a sequel, or a prequel, or something. Maybe a re-release, I don't know. Not sure, and can't be asked to look it up, but I remember at least rumours about something about the game. No particular reason I dropped off from Frictional, just changed my focus to other things, I guess. Anyway, there was a puzzle in Amnesia, I think Amnesia The Dark Descent, the first one, that always stuck with me, because I looked at it, just a quick glance, and pretty much immediately knew the solution. I don't remember the exact details, so the specifics may be a little off, but I know the main gist of it. It was a series of levers that you flip in a specific sequence, either up or down, so that each section adds up to a total of, I'm sure it was 7. The number also may be incorrect though. Like I said, it was more than a decade ago, longer since I played Amnesia, so I don't know, maybe even 2 decades. I'm not sure how old the series is at this point. The point is, I knew the solution at a glance. It's a moment captured in a Let's Play that should still be live on this channel, and I'm pretty sure at the time I mentioned that it brought to mind a scene from Stargate Atlantis, which had something similar. In the show, I'm pretty sure it was a grid of numbers, maybe a 3x3. Again, the specifics don't really matter for the example I'm giving. The point is, it was the same solution, and I'd watched the episode. It was maybe season 4 or 3. It was one of the later ones anyway, but I'd watched it only a few days before playing the game, maybe a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months. Recently anyway. I doubt there was any specific relation between the two, aside from maybe them both taking inspiration from the same source. It was said in the Stargate episode to be a question that was on a Mensa test. Whether that is true, I again don't know. I've never done a full Mensa test, and I don't know if they changed the questions. They probably do. They probably have a whole sequence of different questions that they do at random. I did do a sort of test on their website, the Mensa website, and it wasn't included in that list of questions, but it's certainly the kind of thing they do, I expect, based on my limited knowledge. But I stand with Stephen Hawking on this one. Bragging about IQ is for losers. It can be interesting as a curiosity, a deep cut of personal lore or whatever. So, I mean, drop your scores in the comments if you feel so inclined. Though, whilst we're on the subject, it's worth bearing in mind that there are different tests on different scales that have some variance between them. For example, if someone has a score of, let's say, 160, you can be quite confident in knowing they didn't take the standard Mensa test because it doesn't actually go that high. Cattle Culture Fair, by the way.
Moving on.
Except, actually, no. This is relevant. See, there is really no such thing as a generalized, perfectly fair way to assess IQ. The people who make the tests, who formulate the questions, they go out of their way to negate external knowledge requirements as much as possible. But it just is not something we can really do. Even at the most fundamental level. Think about it. Let's say you're dyslexic, which I am as it happens, though quite mildly. Even if the questions are read aloud for you, that doesn't negate the condition. It can mitigate it, but it will never be fully accounted for. You can't remove dyslexia, it's just there. You can only work around it. So if you have some kind of cognitive variance that affects the way you interact with language, you're already at a disadvantage in some ways, simply because you may not be able to interpret the task in the intended way. Never mind trying to do a test in a second language or something like that. I remember someone else who was practicing for Mensa, and one of the questions was something along the lines of, what is the letter that comes 2 letters after the letter before D? If you don't know the English alphabet, or never took maths in school, or don't know maths, or are dyscalculia, that's going to massively affect your ability to find the correct answer. Probably why stuff like that doesn't pop up so much, if at all, anymore. I honestly don't know. With the more reputable ones being based more on spatial reasoning and recognition of patterns, in my experience. So, what if you're blind? How can you know which shape comes next if you literally cannot see it? You see what I mean? Ha. It was E, by the way. The example earlier, the letter you're after is E. So, going back to amnesia, even if you don't have dyscalculia, only just learned that there's an I in that for those who care. Oh yes, I forgot about that. Dyscalculia. Not dyscalculia, dyscalculia. I forgot in the time it took me to read the script. Anyway, it has an I in it. Even if you don't have that problem, what chance do you have of adding 4 plus 3 if you've never taken a maths class? How do you even know what 4 is? Because there are people out there who never have. More than you may expect. And I'm not just talking about baby Abu from the uncontacted African tribe in the savannah. But it requires external knowledge. Or a secondary skill at the very least. Or maybe you just haven't seen that episode of Atlantis.
Oh.
Now, sure, that's not the same as requiring familiarity with, I don't know. Let's just say, purely hypothetically, for no particular reason, let's say you need to know about the plays of William Shakespeare. Can you see where I'm going with this? One of the better known, or at least in my experience, most discussed puzzles that I have seen is from Silent Hill 2 or 3. I think it's 2, but I'm told it's 3. I remember it being in 2, but it seems to be in number 3. I'm not sure. I think it's number 3. Anyway, it's from the franchise, and it's definitely 2 or 3. It's not in 4. On one of the higher, perhaps the highest puzzle difficulty settings, you have to put a series of books on a shelf in a certain order, dictated by a poem or something like that. Look, I haven't played either of those games for more than 20 years, so I'm not an expert on the minutiae. The point is, the books are all plays by Shakespeare, and the solution is a code for a door. It's based on the number of people who died in each play, or something like that. It is, I looked it up. So, if you've never read his works, or haven't read the specific plays included in that list, you're going to be shit out of luck. Just because he's a staple of many English curricula doesn't mean you, specifically, went through any of them. There are a fair few of them, and only so many classes in a year, you know? With some of them being reserved for higher education settings. Like, I never read Othello until I went to college. So, even though it's a fair assumption that most people will be familiar with Shakespeare, there is absolutely zero likelihood that any one person, chosen at random, will have intimate knowledge of each narrative at the drop of a hat. The list in question, I can't remember all of them, but I know for certain I've never read or watched Hamlet, so I'd struggle with that one. I think I'm familiar with the others though. This specific puzzle is also further complicated by one of the numbers needing to be doubled. Something along the lines of this character killed for 2. I think it's the Scottish play, it's not, it's Hamlet, I looked it up, but I really don't know. I do know it's Hamlet. It's because he's killing for his own purposes and to avenge his father, for those who don't know. And it doesn't matter anyway to the broader issue. The point is, was, and remains, if you don't know them, you don't know them. Like one I've mentioned before in some of these videos and possibly during my Let's Plays, one of the later questions in an episode of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire UK was about the name of the computer in Alien, a film I've seen more than 1,000 times. So, not exactly obscure in my life, by relative standards. It could have been the £100 question for me, that's the first one. I don't need to spend even a moment to think about it. Saying?
Can you dig it?
I don't know if this is a common complaint, as previously alluded to. I only know that some people have lamented the idea. And it's a concern not without merit. There is certainly a balancing act to exactly how puzzles should be structured to be both accessible but still challenging, with multiple studios taking a wide array of approaches, like, for example, Legacy of Kain favouring block puzzles, in the first Soul Reaver at the very least, which is fairer, I'd say, since mostly it's about flipping and pushing them around until they line up with the correct visual cues. But well, even that was criticised, and probably still is, for being too prevalent and even too confusing by some people. There is no one cast iron perfect approach that will please all of the people all of the time. And that's fine. After all, as we all should know, if you try to please everyone, you are making things for no one. At least, not with any degree of focus. The lowest common denominator may have the widest, shall we say, acceptance. It can be consumed by the widest array of personalities. But it has nothing to make it unique. No core demographic that will truly latch on and follow through to the end. Just look at things like, I don't know, it feels mean to do this, but let's pick on Ubisoft for a moment. When they changed Assassin's Creed, it certainly helped the franchise make more money. It brought in more people. But can we honestly say the series is better now? Does it have the same level of fervour among its fan base? Does it even really have a fan base anymore? Puzzle design is the same thing. I am far from the only one who has grown disenfranchised with the gameplay improvements with the Tomb Raider Survivor trilogy. During my time with those games, and you can check my Let's Play history to see for yourself, again, there are 2 of them around this channel anyway, I repeatedly lamented the push for survival instincts button. I don't need a big radioactive glowing nutsack wobbling in my face to tell me that the box over there, big piece of wood, can be pushed around. It's been a core it's been a core facet of the series since the very first game. Seeing the notification pop up, push for survival instincts, reminding me I can make the important stuff stand out, just rubs me the wrong way. And like I said, I know I'm not alone in that. But you control the buttons you press, right? There's truth to that too. And is another of those subjects I intend to explore in depth. But not today. Suffice it to say that, yes, actually, I do. But I can't control how often those buttons are incentivized. Not most of the time, anyway. Ubisoft, whatever the fuck, I don't care, for a while at least, were actually a better example of that. Higher difficulty settings disabled certain features, but that's an even larger problem, if you ask me. Why go to the trouble of creating gameplay systems, making them a core part of the intended experience, and then strip them away? Why not just not make them in the first place? Or go whole hog and just stick to your guns? I mean, it's not my place to tell you you can or can't make any game in any way you should choose to do. My position is, was, and will remain, I vote with my wallet. If a game interests me, I buy it and I play it. If I don't like it, even afterwards, then I'll say so and just move on. Sometimes I look past the issues I have because I see potential for something more aligned with my tastes further down the lines. As much as Jedi Survivor fucked me off, I'll still be getting the next one. I can't remember what it's called. It's due out next year, I think. Probably anyway. Unless they really fuck it up somewhere along the way. There's still enough there in the two games already, including the light puzzle elements, to keep me engaged, to look past the things I don't or even actively dislike, and just press the buttons I want to press.
Well, sorry. We thought you were dead.
I was. I'm better now.
So, how can we build puzzles that will work for everyone? Well, like I just said, we don't. Never mind whether we can or not, that's frankly irrelevant. That's not how it should ever play out. I mean, if you still want to, whatever. Constant refrain on this channel is you do you. Seriously, bro, you do you. You do what you want to do. I'm putting forward my opinions. I'm not telling you that you have to agree with me. I'm not even saying you should agree with me. I'm just saying this is where I stand. But again, just take a moment to think about your favourite media. Not just games. Anything and everything. Although, actually, let's keep this specific to games for now, because here's the thing. I assert all games, pretty much, are built entirely around puzzles. Problem solving, at least. Even the big shoot bangs. Using the right weapon at the right time with perfect positioning, reacting to the environment, the enemies. That's all problem, or rather, puzzle solving. So think of your favourite game/games. Are they still your favourite? New entries in the franchise? Have the new additions added to or subtracted from your enjoyment? Have you moved on? Was it just because you weren't interested anymore? Life moved on and you didn't have the time? Was it because they changed too much? Maybe they didn't change enough. Who knows? But let's look at the series that are still going strong, with the same fervour as ever. How many of them have significantly shifted? The ones that endure, even if not massive household names, stay firmly rooted in the same familiar essence they've always had. Usually, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, the ones that stay, they build on the same thing, time after time. You know what you're going to get, and that's why people keep coming back. They want the thing, and they get the thing. Some people, like myself, actively go looking for new things to try, hunting down the new ideas to see if it works out. Maybe it has potential for greatness on its own, but even then I'll still end up going back to the old faithful. Why play a new, unknown entity when I can stick with what I know? Something tried, tested, and true. Well, I mean, it's not a zero-sum game. It never is. There is a third option. You can, and I do both. There are a number of games coming in the next year or so that I'll be jumping into at soonest convenience. I'd assume you're probably the same. Or maybe you're not. How the fuck should I know? I'm not your dad. I'm not a mind reader. I like puzzles. I like solving them. I get this big dopamine hit from those light bulb moments where everything finally clicks into place. There's a specific example I keep coming back to. Amnesia, mentioned above. Walking into the room, taking one glance at the level puzzle and immediately knowing the solution. Lever puzzle. What am I talking about? Because I already had the external knowledge that I've mentioned. But there's another example, somewhat tangential, but still directly related. Something that happened only a few days ago at time of writing. See, we've recently been reading through the Resident Evil novels as a family, most nights before sleeping. My wife will read a chapter aloud so our kid can follow along, then I'll read a chapter. And in one of the original novels, as in not based on one of the games, there were a couple of puzzles in close proximity, and I knew the answers to both of them. Not because I am some epic level gigabrain, just because I'd come across them before. One of them, I think, is related to the Sphinx. You know, the old walks on 4 legs, then 2, then 3. It's not that one, though. It was about an item that is bought by the one who doesn't need it, used by the one who doesn't want it. I think it's one of the Sphinx's puzzles, because I'm sure there's more than just one. Anyway, the solution is a coffin, though I don't actually remember where I first heard it. The other was the also quite well known As I Was Going to St. Ives, 7 wives, 7 sacks, 7 cats, 7 kittens. You know the one? The answer is 1. And I know exactly where I got the answer to that puzzle from. Die Hard with a Vengeance, of all things. Sam Jackson says it. I was going to St. Ives, so the people you met were coming the other way. Hence, the answer is 1. But despite this, it's still a nice feeling, getting the solution. It's just better when I have to work at it, figure it out for myself. And maybe you disagree, which is fine. I guess that just means puzzle games aren't for you.
Shit! Fuck! Shit! Fuck!
I think the real problem here isn't that people are genuinely angry about requiring knowledge of supplemental media. I'd say the reality is, people who think like that, you just don't like puzzle games. Maybe what's actually happening is that we are more alike than it first seems. Perhaps, just maybe, you like the other parts of the game, the narrative or whatever, and you're putting up with the puzzles as an inevitability of being a part of the cultural zeitgeist. And that is absolutely 100% A-OK. As always, you do you. Another persistent refrain you will hear from me: pork on, bro. Argue for games, or anything else, to be the way you want them to be. To cater your specific tastes, directly to you. Absolutely. You are absolutely allowed to do that. Even if it does come at the expense of someone else. Because, games got to make money, and if the core fan base is just me, and they need to, get other people, then I guess it sucks to be me, right? Just, as always, accept that things might not play out that way. If you sink yourself in on a franchise that has built its identity around solving crazy puzzles, those requiring external knowledge or otherwise, don't be surprised when there's pushback. And can I just say, because I forgot to include this because it only just came to me, I would much rather have a game that requires me to have a fucking PhD in ornithology than moon logic. I would rather need intimate knowledge of a gnat's arsehole than just instinctively know that if I put 25 billion pounds into a washing machine, it will shrink a t-shirt so it can be used in the future. No moon logic, please. Anyway, if a dev team listens to what you say, then goes out of their way to make the next entry even more esoteric, that sucks. For you. But for me, maybe that's what I was championing all along. Maybe I really do want the next game to solely depend on my familiarity with the minutiae of quantum mechanics. I would argue you should see that as an opportunity, an impetus to expand your mind and learn something new, which is a concept I'm really big on. Learning for lack of a better term, is good. You really should be looking at this as an opportunity, something compelling you to broaden your horizons. But if you don't want to, then yeah, that's fine. It's your choice. I'm just not going to stop advocating for it. I'm reminded, actually, of a video I saw close on 2 decades ago. I don't remember any of the particulars, but the premise stuck with me. It was also about taking your attention beyond the game. I can't remember the exact term. Maybe I'll look it up. I try to, but I still can't come up with it. Maybe it'll come to me and I still can't remember. But it doesn't really matter. The point is that being exposed to a concept in media, games in this case, can lead to new discoveries, new knowledge as they pique your interest. Maybe you'll see the Qlifoth in Devil May Cry 5 and think, that seems cool, what is it? And then you'll find yourself with a new special interest.
All this happy horse shit.
So let's bring this all back around. I'm going to ask, again, what truly counts as supplemental? Where do we draw the line? I firmly insist there isn't one. Not objectively. Where do you draw the line? Now that's a different question. That will ever and always remain with your personal tastes. I will, also ever and always, stand by my assertion that everything is at least partially tangential. Even if the game has built-in systems to explain or at least hint at the solution, well, what if it's written in Spanish and you're from Northwest England? Hell, even knowing which button does what, that's still not entirely intuitive. You and I may think so because, I assume, we've both been playing games for many years, even decades. But, well, so has my wife. We met through video games, yet just yesterday, at time of writing, she was playing a game on the Xbox, and I told her she needed to press X. So she pressed A, which for those who don't know, is in the same position as the X button on a PlayStation controller. She frequently has to stop and look at the controller to remind herself which button is which, based on the platform. External knowledge. Is that really so different from having to use a bit of multiplication to know that one of the Shakespeare protagonists was killing for 2 people? Well, I mean, yeah, it's on a different scale, but so what? It's the same principle. And speaking of my wife, I was speaking to her a few minutes ago, again at time of writing, while taking a bio break from writing this very script. And she raised another argument that I find worth exploring. Having to stop the game, tab away and open up your search engine of choice, or fucking AI chatbot if you really must, it breaks the immersion. For some people. Now, first of all, fuck that word. But again, I've said this before. Holding a piece of plastic in your hands is already a challenge to immersion. We have simply become so familiar with it that we can look past it. And necessary to evil to engage with a game in the first place. So, who says that reading a book about Greek mythology isn't the same thing? It all, as always, comes down to your personal standards. It doesn't bother me, overall. I find that kind of thing to be quite rewarding. And if you don't, well, that's up to you. It will ever and always be a personal stance that does not, cannot, and indeed must not be enforced on the rest of the world. Because that's just not cricket, man. We have a name, a word, not a very nice word, for that kind of mentality. And I don't think it's one any of us really want to align with. But, well...
This is awkward.
There's a puzzle in Resident Evil Code Veronica that has been discussed on Twitter recently. The most recent I saw was just last night. Again, time of writing. You press buttons below a series of paintings in an order dictated by a file you find in the same room. And more than one person has been lamenting how vague the instructions are, bigging it up as completely impossible, painfully obtuse, a roadblock, a complete waste of time, with more than one person saying it took them an hour plus before they finally realised that the items mentioned in the, I think it's a letter, relate to things in the pictures themselves. One of them is an earthenware pot, which again my wife was unfamiliar with, specifically the earthenware part, though she knows what a pot is, so it's a simple case of process by elimination. At least we think it is. Other people, some of them, clearly disagree. And okay, you can do that. That's where you draw the line. Sure. Okay. But again, is that a bad thing? In this specific instance, we're talking about something that takes literal seconds to check. And hey, how is that so different from reopening the letter and reading it over again? Just because the file is within the game, it's still, definitionally, external to the puzzle itself. It's all a matter of degrees. As always, we are simply drawing lines in the sand at different places. Mine have a greater circumference than yours. And neither of us is wrong. Like, really, is it any different reading a file in a game and reading a file in real life? Still reading. Ultimately, it all comes down to the same thing. Personal taste. Maybe you don't like learning as much as I do. Maybe you simply do not want to spend time away from the game. That's not a value judgment. It falls on each of us to define our own tastes, our own standards, our own lines in the sand. So, as always, argue for what you want. Support the games, puzzle-based or otherwise, that align with your own desires. And we, all of us, will do the same. If you don't want to play something that relies on knowing something the game doesn't explicitly spell out, doesn't even include, then don't. Really. That's okay. You're allowed to do that. As much as I may advocate this is a good thing, that being guided to explore newer and bigger things, learning is good, I will always stand by that. Knowledge is power, or however you want to put it. Plus, it's fun to increase the volume of information within your noggin. Please, I entreat you, see it as an opportunity, rather than a roadblock. An opportunity, rather than a hindrance. Or don't. I'm not your dad. Just go play some games. I don't know if I've given you anything worth thinking about. I'm not even trying to change your mind about anything. This is where I stand, and that's enough for me. I only hope that I have said something of value. And oh, well, I have. To myself at least. If you agree, disagree, or don't even care, feel free to express that in the comment section. Or not. And I've been meaning to say this for a while now, but I actually have a Discord server. It's also linked in the description. Drop on by if you like. Support my Patreon, share, whatever. Knock yourself out. Or don't. Because what really matters, after all, is thank you for watching.